Ang mga batang ngayon lang isinilang, may hangin pa kayang matitikman? May mga puno pa kaya silang aakyatin? May mga ilog pa kayang lalamuyan?
Bakit di natin pag-isipan ang nangyayari sa ating kapaligiran?
Hindi nga masamang pagunlad kung hindi nakakasira ng kalikasan. Lahat ng bagay na narito sa lupa, biyayang galing sa Diyos kahit nung ika'y wala pa. Ingatan natin at huwag nang sirain pa, pagkat pag kanyang linawi tayo'y mawawala na.
Many things have to change course, but it is we human beings, above all, who need to change. We lack an awareness of our common origin, of our mutual belonging, and of a future to be shared with everyone. This basic awareness would enable the development of new convictions, attitudes, and forms of life. A great cultural, spiritual and educational challenge stands before us, and it will demand that we set out on the long path of renewal. The current global situation engenders a feeling of instability and uncertainty which becomes a seedbed of collective selfishness. When people become self-centered and self-enclosed, their greed increases. The emptier a person's heart is, the more urge to buy, own and consume. A genuine sense of the common good disappears. Social norms are respected only to the extent that they do not clash with personal needs, and obsession with a consumerist lifestyle that only few can maintain can only lead to violence and mutual destruction. So our concern cannot be limited merely to the threat of extreme weather events, but must also extend to the catastrophic consequences of social unrest. But while human beings are capable of the worst, they are also capable of rising above themselves, choosing what is good and making a new start. Today, the issue of environmental degradation challenges us to examine our lifestyle. Change in lifestyle. A change in lifestyle could bring healthy pressure to bear on those who wield political, economic, and social power. When social pressure affects their earnings, businesses clearly have to find ways to produce differently. Purchasing is always a moral, and not simply economic, act. Making a new start. The Earth Charter asked us to leave behind a period of self-destruction and make a new start. But we have not developed a universal awareness to achieve this. The challenge is, as never before in history, common destiny beckons us to seek a new beginning. Let ours be a time remembered for the awakening of a new reverence for life, the firm resolve to achieve sustainability, the quickening of the struggle for justice and peace, and the joyful celebration of life. Overcoming individualism. We are always capable of going out of ourselves towards the other. If we can overcome individualism, we will truly be able to develop a different lifestyle and bring about significant changes in society. An awareness of the gravity of today's cultural and ecological crisis must be translated into new habits. Yet this education is at times limited to providing information, and fails to instill good habits. Environmental education should facilitate making the leap towards the transcendent, which gives ecological ethics its deepest meaning. Need for sound virtues. Only by cultivating sound virtues will people be able to make a selfless ecological commitment. Nobility in little daily actions. There is nobility in the duty to care for creation through little daily actions. We can avoid the use of plastic and paper, reduce water consumption, separate refuse, cook only what can reasonably be consumed, show care for other living beings, use public transport or carpooling, plant trees, turn off unnecessary lights, or any number of other practices. Little efforts, big change. We must not think that these efforts are not going to change the world. They benefit society, for they call forth a goodness which, albeit unseen, inevitably tends to spread. They also restore our self-esteem and enable us to live more fully and to feel that life on earth is worthwhile. Locus of education. Ecological education can take place in a variety of settings: at school, in families, in the media, in catechesis, and elsewhere. Good education plants seeds when we are young, and these continue to bear fruit throughout life. Political institutions and various other social groups are also entrusted with helping to raise people's awareness. So too is the Church. All Christian communities have an important role to play in ecological education. I would stress the great importance of the family. In the face of the so-called culture of death, the family is the heart of the culture of life. In the family we first learn how to show love and respect for life. We are taught the proper use of things, order and cleanliness, respect for the local ecosystem and care for all creatures. In the family we receive an integral education, which enables us to grow harmoniously in personal maturity, to say thank you, and to ask forgiveness. These simple gestures of heartfelt courtesy help to create a culture of shared life and respect for our surroundings. The external deserts in the world are growing, because the internal deserts have become vast. For this reason, the ecological crisis is also a summons to profound interior conversion. Some committed and prayerful Christians tend to ridicule expressions of concern for the environment. What they need is ecological conversion, whereby the effects of their encounter with Jesus Christ become evident in their relationship with the world around them. This conversion calls for a number of attitudes which together foster a spirit of generous care, full of tenderness, gratitude and gratuitousness, a recognition that the world is God's loving gift, and that we are called quietly to imitate His generosity in self-sacrifice and good works. Universal communion. A loving awareness that we are not disconnected from the rest of creatures, but joined in a splendid universal communion. Acceptance of responsibility. We do not understand our superiority as a reason for personal glory or irresponsible dominion, but rather as a different capacity which entails a serious responsibility stemming from our faith. I would like to offer Christians a few suggestions for an ecological spirituality grounded in the convictions of our faith, since the teachings of the gospel have direct consequences for our way of thinking, feeling, and living. I am interested in how such a spirituality can motivate us to a more passionate concern for the protection of the world. Various convictions of our faith can help us enrich the meaning of ecological conversion. Each creature reflects something of God and has a message to convey to us. The security that Christ has taken unto Himself this material world and now, risen, is intimately present to each being, surrounding it with His affection and penetrating it with His light. God created the world, writing into it an order and a dynamism that human beings have no right to ignore. The ecological conversion needed to bring about lasting change is also a community conversion. Social problems must be addressed by community networks and not simply by the sum of individual good deeds. Christian spirituality proposes an alternative understanding of the quality of life, prophetic and contemplative lifestyle, and free of the obsession with consumption. Less is more. We need to take up an ancient lesson, found in different religious traditions and also in the Bible, the conviction that less is more, a growth marked by moderation and the capacity to be happy with little. It is a return to that simplicity which allows us to stop and appreciate the small things. Be grateful for the opportunities which life affords us. Be spiritually detached from what we possess, and not to succumb to sadness for what we lack. Such sobriety, when lived freely and consciously, is liberating. It is not a lesser life nor one lived with less intensity. On the contrary, it is a way of living life to the full. We are able to shed unsatisfied needs, reduce obsessiveness and weariness. Even living on little, we can live a lot. Inner peace. No one can cultivate a sober and satisfying life without being at peace with himself. Inner peace is closely related to care for the ecology and for the common good because it is reflected in a balanced lifestyle together with a capacity for wonder which takes us to a deeper understanding of life. Reflection and contemplation. An integral ecology includes taking time to recover a serene harmony with creation, reflecting on our lifestyle and our ideals, and contemplating the Creator who lives among us and surrounds us. Attitude of the heart. We are speaking of an attitude of the heart, one which approaches life with serene attentiveness, which is capable of being fully present to someone without thinking of what comes next, which accepts each moment as a gift from God to be lived to the full. This is a way to overcome that unhealthy anxiety which makes us superficial, aggressive, and compulsive consumers. One expression of this attitude is when we stop and give thanks to God before and after meals. I ask all believers to return to this beautiful and meaningful custom. Care for nature is part of a lifestyle which includes the capacity for living together and communion. We must regain the conviction that we need one another, that we have a shared responsibility for others and the world, and that being good and decent are worth it. Social love and little daily gestures. Along with the importance of little everyday gestures, social love moves us to devise larger strategies to halt environmental degradation and to encourage a culture of care which permeates all of society. Little everyday gestures. An integral ecology is also made up of simple daily gestures which break with the logic of violence, exploitation, and selfishness. Love, overflowing with small gestures of mutual care, is also civic and political, and it makes itself felt in every action that seeks to build a better world. Civilization of love. Social love is the key to authentic development. Love for society and commitment to the common good are outstanding expressions of a charity which affects not only relationships between individuals but also macro relationships, social, economic, and political ones. Community actions. Society is also enriched by a countless array of organizations which work to promote the common good and to defend the environment. Some, for example, show concern for a public place, and strive to protect, restore, improve, or beautify something belonging to everyone. Around these community actions, relationships develop or are recovered and a new social fabric emerges. Enable communities to break out of indifference induced by consumerism. Cultivate a shared identity, with a story which can be remembered and handed on. In this way, the world and the quality of life of the poorest are cared for, with a sense of solidarity which is at the same time aware that we live in a common home which God has entrusted to us. These community actions, when they express self-giving love, can also become intense spiritual experiences. The universe unfolds in God, who fills it completely. The ideal is not only to pass from the exterior to the interior to discover the action of God in the soul, but also to discover God in all things. Sacraments. The sacraments are a privileged way in which nature is taken up by God to become a means of mediating supernatural life. Through our worship of God, we are invited to embrace the world on a different plane with symbolisms. Water, oil, fire, and colors are taken up in all their symbolic power and incorporated in our act of praise. The hand that blesses is an instrument of God's love and a reflection of the closeness of Jesus Christ, who came to accompany us in the journey of life. Water poured in baptism is a sign of new life. Beauty appears everywhere, in the shape of the church, in the sounds, in the colors, in the lights, in the scents. The human body is disclosed as a temple of the Holy Spirit and is united with the Lord Jesus. Holy Eucharist. It is in the Eucharist that all that has been created finds its greatest exaltation. Grace found unsurpassable expression when God Himself became man and gave Himself as food for His creatures. He comes not from above, but from within. He comes that we might find Him in this world of ours. In the Eucharist, fullness is achieved. It is the living center of the universe, the overflowing core of love and of inexhaustible life. The Eucharist is itself an act of cosmic love, because even when it is celebrated on the humble altar of a country church, it is celebrated on the altar of the world. The Eucharist joins heaven and earth, it embraces and penetrates all creation. The Eucharist is also a source of light and motivation for our concerns for the environment, directing us to be stewards of all creation. Rest on Sunday. On Sunday, the day of resurrection, our participation in the Eucharist has special importance, a day which heals our relationship with God, with ourselves, with others and with the world, and proclaims man's eternal rest in God. Rest opens our eyes to the larger picture and gives us renewed sensitivity to the rights of others. And so the day of rest, centered on the Eucharist, sheds light on the whole week, and motivates us to greater concern for nature and the poor. The world was created by the three persons acting as a single divine principle, but each one of them performed this common work in accordance with his own personal property. Consequently, when we contemplate with wonder the universe in all its grandeur and beauty, we must praise the whole Trinity. For Christians, believing in one God who is Trinitarian communion, suggests that the Trinity has left its mark on all creation. The divine persons are subsistent relations, and the world, created to the divine model, is a web of relationships. In this way, human beings make their own that Trinitarian dynamism which God imprinted in them when they were created. Everything is interconnected, and this invites us to develop a spirituality of that global solidarity which flows from the mystery of the Trinity. Mary, the mother who cared for Jesus, now cares with maternal affection and pain for this wounded world. Just as her pierced heart mourned the death of Jesus, so now she grieves for the sufferings of the crucified poor and for the creatures of this world laid to waste by human power. She treasures the entire life of Jesus in her heart, and now understands the meaning of all things. Hence, we can ask her to enable us to look at this world with eyes of wisdom. Joseph. The Gospel presents Joseph as a just man, hard-working, and strong. But he also shows great tenderness, which is not a mark of the weak but of those who are genuinely strong, fully aware of reality and ready to love and serve in humility. He too can teach us how to show care, he can inspire us to work with generosity and tenderness in protecting this world which God has entrusted to us. At the end, we will find ourselves face to face with the infinite beauty of God and be able to read with admiration and happiness the mystery of the universe, which with us will share in unending plenitude. In the meantime, we come together to take charge of this home which has been entrusted to us, knowing that all the good which exists here will be taken up into the heavenly feast. May our struggles and our concern for this planet never take away the joy of our hope. God, who calls us to generous commitment and to give Him our all, offers us the light and the strength needed to continue on our way. He does not abandon us, He does not leave us alone, for He has united Himself definitively to our earth, and His love constantly impels us to find new ways forward. Praise be to Him. At the conclusion of this lengthy reflection, which has been both joyful and troubling, I propose that we offer two prayers. The first we can share with all who believe in God, who is the all-powerful Creator, while in the other we Christians ask for inspiration to take up the commitment to creation set before us by the gospel of Jesus.
Bakit di natin pag-isipan ang nangyayari sa ating kapaligiran?
Hindi nga masamang pagunlad kung hindi nakakasira ng kalikasan. Lahat ng bagay na narito sa lupa, biyayang galing sa Diyos kahit nung ika'y wala pa. Ingatan natin at huwag nang sirain pa, pagkat pag kanyang linawi tayo'y mawawala na.